Okay, welcome to the deep dive. You've brought us a really interesting source document today. It offers a specific view on something many of us have probably noticed.
Mm.
Why some physical stores, some businesses seem to be really struggling, sometimes even, well, going bankrupt.
That's right. And this isn't just another, the internet is killing retail piece.
No.
This document digs deeper. It suggests the real problems are actually internal, much closer to home for these businesses.
Right. Inside the businesses themselves.
Yeah, looking at their products, their services, even the decisions being made at the top.
Okay, so our mission today is to really unpack the single source, pull out the key reasons it gives for these struggles, because it makes a pretty strong case, doesn't it?
It really
That
does.
many of these stores didn't just hit, like, a rough patch. They maybe lost touch with what customers actually need.
Exactly. And that the quality of what they do sell has, well, plummeted.
Plummeted, yeah. And on top of that, their day-to-day operations are failing in some pretty basic ways.
The core argument, according to this source, is quite compelling. It's basically saying these businesses failed because they stopped providing, real value.
Hmm.
They weren't selling what people needed or maybe even wanted in a way that made sense anymore.
So let's jump into one of the first big points this source makes. It talks about this fundamental shift.
Right, in consumer behavior.
Driven partly by inflation, it suggests, it sets up this historical idea, stores selling wants versus needs.
Yeah, the wants being, things for comfort, enjoyment, the nice-to-haves.
And the needs being the absolute essentials, things you really can't live without.
And this document argues that with inflation rising, people are forced to choose. They have to prioritize the needs.
Makes sense.
So if your whole business model is built on those non-essential want items, well, you suddenly become very vulnerable.
Very vulnerable, yeah. The source gives a pretty stark example of this, doesn't it?
It does. A store that only sold, like, fancy bath salts and aromatic bath products.
Oh, okay.
It went bankrupt, according to the document. And the explanation given is really simple.
Which is?
People can easily live without fancy shower baths. It's presented as just a clear case, a wants business failing when people had to cut back spending.
Okay, so that's what they're selling. But the source really seems to hammer on the quality of the products, too.
Oh, definitely. It points to a huge issue with production, specifically this move away from domestically made goods.
Right. Chasing higher profit margins, maybe?
That's the argument, yeah. Shifting production overseas, sourcing cheaper materials, cheaper labor, all to boost the bottom line.
But the result, as the source describes it,
Right.
not good.
Not good at all. The imported products are often described as counterfeit or just, really poorly made.
The source uses pretty strong language, calling them junks.
It does, chunks, sometimes broken before you even open the package, or they just fall apart after a month or so.
Wow. And it gives specific examples.
Very specific. It talks about drugstores, selling more than just medicine these days.
Yeah, they sell all sorts of things. Food, electronics.
Exactly. And the source points to things like their daily grocery items. The bread, for instance, is described as just badly made.
Badly made how?
Like lacking actual flour, being weirdly light, and tasting awful because of added chemicals. It specifically mentions a dominant carbonate taste.
Ugh. So you can't even taste the bread itself.
Apparently not, according to this view. No flour, milk, or butter taste. And it doesn't stop there. The electronics they sell.
Oh, yeah, the speakers, headphones.
Speakers, headphones, even electronic toothbrushes. The source just says they're no good.
Is there detail on the toothbrush? That sounds specific.
Yeah, it's quite detailed. It mentions instructions not matching the replacement parts people buy.
Oh, that's frustrating.
And people trying to peel off plastic that isn't meant to be peeled, water getting inside the unit.
So it just stops working.
Pretty much. And the source connects this back to parts maybe being made or instructions printed in countries where English isn't the main language, causing these, ongoing usability problems.
It makes sense.
And it also mentions everyday things. Body wash, soap, deodorant, toothpaste, often made elsewhere now.
Which adds costs, right?
Mhm.
Taxes, transport.
Exactly. Which ironically can end up making them too expensive for the customer anyway, despite the cheaper production.
It's not just drugstores getting this critique, though.
No. The source points to big clothing chains too, some that went bankrupt.
And the reason given?
Partly because they were selling clothes made outside the U.S. that just didn't fit American tastes. The example given is trying to sell skinny jeans,
Okay.
when, according to this document's perspective, most Americans, especially men,
Yeah.
just don't wear them. so a mismatch with the customer.
Interesting, like a fundamental misunderstanding of their market.
Seems to be the argument. And those same clothing stores, the source says, also tried selling those cheap, unreliable electronics.
The junks again.
Yep, described as massive, plastic, ugly-looking. A piece of junk. So, yeah, the source sees this pattern across different types of stores. Declining quality, questionable sourcing.
Okay, all right. So moving on from the products themselves. The source also focuses on failures inside the stores. Operational stuff, service issues.
Right. This is about the experience once you're actually there. It argues many businesses just weren't offering good enough services.
And the staff.
Undertrained or maybe just overloaded. Spread too thin.
Okay, examples.
It gets into some pretty frustrating scenarios described in the source. Back in those drugstores, they might have services like money transfers. Right?
Yeah, often through a partner company.
But the source claims the computers for those services are often unupdated or sometimes just plain disconnected.
Seriously.
And self-service kiosks. Often wrong, apparently. Or trying to get a passport photo.
Oh, I've tried that. It can be hit or miss.
Well, the source claims the camera is frequently broken or the staff just haven't been trained to use it properly.
So what happens when you asked?
The common refrain, according to this document, is, the system is down.
The classic system is down. Frustrating.
Very. And it touches on trying to compete with online ordering, with store pickup options.
Which seems like a good idea in theory.
In theory. But the source says the software often doesn't work right, or the staff just don't have the time to actually find and pack the orders.
Leading to?
That situation where you order something online, it says it's in stock for pickup, you go to the store.
And it's not there.
Exactly. Not actually in stock.
Ugh. And then the source contrasts this with bigger, maybe more specialized stores.
Yeah, suggesting that, the big players who do specialize often have these systems working smoothly. They're just more convenient. You get everything efficiently.
Okay. Any other specific examples of these operational failures?
There's a really striking anecdote about a famous gas station chain known for its coffee.
Okay. Big selling point besides gas, usually.
Right. But at one particular branch, the coffee machine was apparently broken. Out of service.
For how long?
For 2 months.
2 months for a coffee machine at a place known for coffee.
That's what the source claims. And apparently the fix was simple. It just needed a technician to come and reset a computer.
Wow. 2 months for a reset. What does the source say that indicates?
It highlights it as a symptom. A lack of available technicians, maybe, but also disconnect from corporate.
Like headquarters maybe didn't even know a main attraction was offline for that long.
That seems to be the implication.
Yeah.
That the decision makers are out of touch with the ground reality.
Okay. What about restaurants? Does the source mention them?
It does. There's a story about visiting a restaurant where the beef was described as aging and improperly defrosted.
Leading to?
Tough steaks. Had to be sent back. And apparently the staff got frustrated and even lectured the customers about it.
Lectured the customers.
Yeah. Which the source links back to inventory maybe not selling fast enough, leading to older product.
Okay, that makes a grim kind of sense. Anything else at this restaurant?
Yeah. Compounding the issue, the source noted the ATM in the restaurant was always out of order.
Always convenient.
Right. And then, one specific day, the main computer server went down.
Oh, boy.
Meaning they could only accept cash, which, as you can imagine...
caused a lot of people to just leave.
Exactly. Lots of customers walked out.
And the source attributes this to...
a lack of IT support. No network specialists available or on call. The view is, if this place closes, it's not just the food, it's the failing tech infrastructure too.
And again, it contrasts this with competitors.
Yes, saying, other places you can easily order online, pick up fresh food, better quality maybe because their systems work and they have faster turnover.
Okay. So pulling all these threads together, this source has a very clear...
extremely pointed.
And it explicitly says online stores are not the main villain here.
Right. The argument is the failure was already happening internally, long before online competition became the scapegoat.
Because of the bad products and the failing services.
Exactly. These problems were fundamental, self-inflicted according to this view, not just some external market shift taking them down.
And it's quite critical of blaming the workers, too, isn't it?
Very critical. It argues workers are often just overloaded. They're not given the right tools or training for new systems or, new responsibilities.
Like needing IT skills just to keep the coffee machine running, perhaps.
Sort of, yeah. Or to manage a buggy online ordering system. And they don't have the power to fix the bigger issues anyway, like old inventory or broken equipment.
Right, they're just dealing with the consequences.
Exactly. And the document also aims criticism at the media and journalists,
How so?
arguing they tend to blame the workers or they rely on like irrelevant data reports. And crucially, they don't actually go to the businesses.
They don't experience the products or services firsthand.
Right. So the source suggests they end up misleading investors by not reporting the real on-the-ground problems.
That's a strong claim.
It is. And finally, the sharpest criticism seems reserved for the decision makers, the execs.
The CFOs, CEOs, board members.
Them, yeah, portraying them as, frankly, disconnected, out of touch with the reality in their own stores.
Like not using the products themselves, not spending time in the branches.
That's the picture painted, that they exist in a kind of bubble. And according to this perspective, they'd rather hire PR firms.
To manage the image.
Yeah, to spin the narrative, rather than actually investing the money and effort to fix the fundamental problems with the products and the operations. Making decisions from afar without really understanding the impact.
Okay, so let's try to summarize the source's perspective then. The struggles, the failures of some physical businesses from this particular point of view. They stem mainly from, one, a serious decline in product quality, often linked to chasing cheaper sourcing.
Right, the junk problem.
Two, major operational failures, broken systems, undertrained or overburdened staff, services that just don't work.
Yep, the system is down problem.
And three, this fundamental disconnect between the corporate strategy folks at the top and the actual reality experienced by customers and employees on the ground.
A huge disconnect.
And the source is adamant these internal issues were the root cause, not just, blaming Amazon or lazy workers.
Really forces you, if you accept this perspective, to look inward at the business's own mistakes in execution.
Yeah, rather than just pointing fingers outwards at the market or the internet.
Exactly.
So, given the source's strong perspective, that corporate leaders are often quite detached from the day-to-day, from the quality of their own products, the function of their own services, it raises a question, doesn't it?
What's that?
How might a company realistically ensure its big strategic decisions actually align with what customers are experiencing and, what's even possible for the staff on the ground to actually deliver?
That's a really tough one. How do you bridge that gap?
It gets right to the heart of that disconnect the document describes, something for you, the listener, to think about.